Ever had a toothache so bad you wanted to die? Imagine living in medieval times. Think your dentist is scary now. Number 9. The worm theory. Did you know medieval people thought tiny worms caused toothaches? It's true. When someone in medieval Europe complained about tooth pain, the common belief was that a small worm had burrowed inside their tooth and was gnawing away from within. This wasn't just a folktale or superstition, it was accepted medical fact for centuries. The first mention of the tooth worm appears in a Mesopotamian text dating all the way back to 5000 BC, and the idea persisted well into the 18th century. Medieval dental practitioners would often try to smoke out these imaginary worms by having patients inhale the fumes from burning henbane seeds, which, by the way, are poisonous and can cause hallucinations. Patients would hold their mouth open over a bowl of hot water containing these burning seeds, covered with a cloth to trap the steam. The heat and mild anesthetic properties of the henbane might temporarily relieve pain, reinforcing the belief that worms were the cause. Some healers even claimed they could see the worms coming out. What they were actually seeing were probably the nerve fibers of severely damaged teeth being extracted. In some cases, desperate sufferers would be told to attract the worm out by smearing honey on their gums, hoping the sweet taste would lure the worm from the painful tooth. Others were instructed to place a candle near their mouth, believing the worm would be drawn to the light. Medieval medical manuscripts even contained detailed drawings of these dental worms, described as small, thread-like creatures with heads. What's even more fascinating is that this belief transcended cultural boundaries. From Europe to China, from the Islamic world to the Americas, variations of the tooth worm theory existed across virtually all medieval societies. It wasn't until the dawn of modern dentistry and the microscope that this theory was finally put to rest. The worm theory of toothaches serves as a stark reminder of how our ancestors struggled to explain pain and disease without the benefit of modern science. Number 8. Dental practitioners, barbers, blacksmiths, and strangers at the fair. Who would you trust to pull your teeth today? A trained dentist, right? In medieval times, you'd be at the mercy of whoever claimed they could help. Most commonly, this meant your local barber. Yes, the same person who cut your hair also extracted teeth. Barbers were considered skilled with sharp implements, making them the natural choice for dental work. They advertised their dual services with red and white striped poles, the red representing blood, the white for bandages. These barber surgeons performed extractions without anesthesia, often in public spaces to attract customers through their bravado. If not a barber, you might visit the village blacksmith. Their strength and familiarity with tools made them another common choice for tooth extractions. Imagine the same hands that shaped horseshoes and iron implements prying teeth from your jaw. Blacksmiths would sometimes use the same tongs they employed in their forge to grip troublesome teeth, though some crafted specialized dental instruments. Perhaps most concerning were the traveling tooth drawers who moved from town to town, setting up at fairs and marketplaces. These practitioners had no fixed address or reputation to maintain, allowing them to practice with minimal accountability. Many were charlatans who performed quick, brutal extractions before moving on to the next town before complications arose. They often created spectacular shows, extracting teeth dramatically while assistants beat drums to drown out the patient's screams. Some of these traveling practitioners became quite famous. The most renowned was Legrand Thomas, who worked in Paris during the early 18th century. He dressed flamboyantly, often in a red coat covered with teeth he had extracted, and rode around on a richly decorated horse. He claimed to have pulled teeth for royalty across Europe and charged premium prices based on his reputation. For the wealthy, some monks with rudimentary medical training might offer dental services, as monasteries were centers of medieval medical knowledge. Still, even these practitioners relied more on prayer than technique. In Islamic countries, specialized dental surgeons existed somewhat earlier than in Europe, with texts describing dental procedures dating back to the 10th century. The complete lack of standardization meant that the experience and skill of these practitioners varied wildly. Some might be surprisingly adept after years of practice, while others caused more harm than good. Without formal training or oversight, medieval dental practitioners learned through trial and error, with patients bearing the full brunt of those errors. Number 7. Pain management, alcohol, plants, and prayer. Can you imagine having a tooth extracted with nothing but wine for pain relief? Medieval people faced this reality daily. Pain management during dental procedures in the Middle Ages ranged from minimally effective to completely useless. Alcohol was the most common anesthetic. Patients might consume large quantities of wine, ale, or stronger spirits before procedures. Some practitioners soaked cloths in alcohol and pressed them against the affected area. While alcohol might dull the pain somewhat and certainly calmed nerves, it was woefully inadequate for the agony of dental work. Sometimes, patients were simply given a leather strap to bite down on during procedures, a practice that continued well into the 19th century. Various plants were employed for their numbing properties. Henbane, mandrake, and opium poppy were among the most effective, though their use was inconsistent and dosages unpredictable. Clove oil, still used today for temporary tooth pain relief, was known in medieval Europe after being imported from Asia. The oil contains eugenol, a natural anesthetic. Practitioners would pack the painful tooth with cloth soaked in clove oil before extraction or other procedures. Some healers created complex poultices using herbs like black nightshade, hemlock, and mandragora mixed with wine. These were applied directly to the painful area. While some of these plants contain compounds with genuine analgesic properties, they were also highly toxic. Patients occasionally suffered poisoning from these remedies that was worse than the original dental problem. For many medieval people, especially the poor, prayer was the only pain management available. Religious relics associated with Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of dentistry and toothache sufferers, were particularly sought after. Apollonia was a Christian martyr who, according to legend, had all her teeth broken or extracted during torture. Churches claiming to possess her teeth or bone fragments would allow sufferers to touch these relics, hoping for miraculous pain relief. In some regions, magical spells and incantations were recited before dental procedures. These varied widely but often involved invoking saints or making specific gestures while reciting particular phrases. While completely ineffective from a medical standpoint, the psychological comfort may have helped some patients cope with their ordeal. Some wealthy patients could obtain more effective pain management. By the late medieval period, soporific sponges soaked in opium, mandrake, hemlock, and other substances were sometimes used. When held over a patient's nose, they induced unconsciousness, though with considerable risk. These early anesthetics were dangerous and often led to deaths from overdose. The inadequacy of pain management meant that speed was essential in dental procedures. The most skilled tooth drawers prided themselves on their ability to complete an extraction in seconds rather than minutes, minimizing the duration of the patient's suffering, if not its intensity. Number 6. Dental tools of torture. Have you ever stared nervously at your dentist's instruments? They would look like toys compared to medieval dental tools. The implements used for dental procedures in the Middle Ages were crude, unsterilized, and designed with functionality rather than patient comfort in mind. The dental pelican, named for its resemblance to a pelican's beak, was the primary extraction tool from the 14th to the 18th centuries. This claw-like device would grip the tooth while the practitioner applied leverage against the gum, often breaking the tooth crown or jawbone in the process. Its use required considerable strength and frequently resulted in broken teeth, damaged gums, and splintered jawbones. By the late medieval period, the dental key emerged as an alternative. Resembling a door key with a claw at the end, it would be placed over the tooth with the claw gripping it, then rotated like a key to leverage the tooth out. While slightly more effective than the pelican, it still caused extensive trauma. The handle provided enormous mechanical advantage, easily fracturing the tooth or surrounding bone when used improperly, which was often. For more accessible teeth, standard forceps or extraction tongs were used, essentially pliers modified for gripping teeth. These were frequently repurposed tools rather than specialized dental instruments. Blacksmiths who performed dental work might simply use the same tongs they employed in their forge, perhaps with minor modifications. Dental excavators, sharp, pointed instruments used to scrape decay from teeth, were particularly primitive. Often little more than sharpened metal probes, they caused excruciating pain when used to dig into sensitive tooth pulp. Some were fashioned from animal bones or hardwoods, sharpened to a point. For filling cavities, practitioners used a bewildering array of substances. Lead, tin, gold for the wealthy, beeswax, gum, and various herbal pastes were all employed. These were packed into the cleaned cavity using small metal spatulas or wooden sticks. Without proper cleaning or sterilization, these fillings often introduced new infections. Scaling tools for removing tartar were essentially small metal hooks and scrapers that would be dragged along the teeth and gums. Unlike modern ultrasonic scalers or carefully designed manual scalers, these crude implements often damaged enamel and lacerated gums. Perhaps most disturbing was the cauterizing iron, a metal rod heated in fire until red hot, then applied to bleeding gums or abscesses. This brutal method could stop bleeding and kill some bacteria, but caused unimaginable pain and often resulted in serious burns to the mouth, lips, and face. The materials these tools were made from added another layer of horror. Most were iron or steel, prone to rusting and impossible to properly sterilize. Some implements were made of bronze, brass, or even lead, which could leach toxic compounds into the patient's mouth. Wood and bone tools were common but harbored bacteria and could splinter during use. Tools were rarely cleaned between patients beyond a quick wipe with a cloth. The same implements might be used on dozens of patients in a single day at busy fairs or marketplaces, spreading infection widely. Blood, pus, and tissue would build up on these instruments, making them not only painful but also dangerous vectors for disease. Number 5. Bizarre treatments and folk remedies. Would you rub your gums with dog's milk to prevent tooth decay? Medieval people did. The treatments for dental problems in medieval times ranged from the merely ineffective to the frankly dangerous and disgusting. Urine was a commonly recommended mouthwash, believed to strengthen teeth and gums. People were advised to rinse their mouths with their own urine or, even more disturbingly, with the urine of a young boy. The ammonia in urine does have some antibacterial properties, but the practice introduced numerous other pathogens. Some medical texts recommended collecting urine specifically on Easter Sunday, believing it had special healing properties on that holy day. Mouse parts featured prominently in dental remedies. The ashes of burnt mice might be applied directly to aching teeth. Even more revolting, some practitioners advised placing the split body of a freshly killed mouse, still warm, against the cheek over a painful tooth or abscess. The warmth may have provided some comfort, but infection was a serious risk. Tooth transplantation became somewhat popular by the later medieval period, especially among the wealthy. This involved extracting teeth from poor young people who were paid or coerced and immediately implanting them into the jaws of wealthy patients. These gruesome transplants almost always failed, causing severe infections and pain for both donor and recipient. For teething infants, a startling array of dangerous practices existed. Rubbing the gums with honey, animal brains, or rabbit blood were common recommendations. Some parents were told to hang animal teeth around their child's neck or to have them bite on bones or stones. More dangerous was the practice of cutting the gums with a knife to help teeth emerge, which frequently led to fatal infections. Toothache treatments included placing various substances directly into cavity holes. These included everything from pepper and mustard seeds, causing intense burning pain but temporarily masking the original toothache, to garlic, onions, and herbs. Some manuscripts recommended placing a hot seed of the poisonous henbane plant into the cavity, which could kill the nerve but also cause hallucinations and toxic reactions. People suffering from dental abscesses might have hot tar dripped into their mouths or have a mixture of sheep fat and crushed earthworms packed against the affected tooth. Others were advised to capture live frogs, hold them against their cheeks until the animals died, believing the frog would draw out the disease. Rare and exotic ingredients featured in remedies for the wealthy. Powdered gemstones, crushed pearls, and coral might be rubbed on teeth as abrasive cleaners. Some physicians recommended pastes made with honey and the burned remains of wolf heads, believing this would prevent decay and strengthen teeth. Bloodletting was commonly prescribed for dental issues, based on the theory that tooth pain resulted from an excess of blood or humors in the head. Leeches might be applied directly to the gums, or veins under the tongue could be cut to release blood. This weakened patients and offered no dental benefit. One particularly strange practice involved transferring the toothache to another object or being. People were instructed to drive nails into trees while naming their pain, to carve their name on a fish bone then give it to a dog, or to rub their gums with bread then feed it to a dog, all in attempts to transfer their suffering magically to something else. Number 4. Dental hygiene, cloth, twigs, and urine. When was the last time you brushed with a twig? In medieval times, this was cutting-edge oral hygiene. Dental care routines differed dramatically from our modern practices, with surprising regional variations and distinct differences between social classes. Toothbrushes as we know them didn't exist in medieval Europe. Instead, people commonly used chew sticks, small twigs from aromatic trees like cinnamon, neem, or salvadora that were frayed at one end by chewing, creating a primitive brush. The other end was sometimes sharpened to serve as a toothpick. These sticks often came from trees with natural antibacterial properties and were relatively effective when used regularly. In the Islamic world, the miswak from the Salvadora persica tree was widely used and even had religious significance, with Muhammad recommending its use. For those without access to suitable twigs, rags were the alternative. Coarse cloths would be wrapped around fingers and rubbed against teeth, sometimes with abrasives like salt, ground chalk, or crushed charcoal added. These abrasives could clean teeth, but also wore away enamel with regular use. Some medieval texts recommended rubbing teeth with sage leaves, which do have mild antibacterial properties. Toothpicks were commonly used and carried as personal items by many. They were fashioned from silver, gold, or ivory for the wealthy, while most people used wood, bone, or porcupine quills. In fact, toothpicks were one of the most sophisticated dental tools available, and their use was described in medieval etiquette manuals. Mouthwashes varied widely and reflected social status. Common folk might rinse with water, vinegar, or wine. The wealthy could afford more exotic options like rosewater or myrrh solutions. As mentioned earlier, urine was considered an effective mouthwash across many regions, believed to whiten teeth and fight decay. Salt water was also commonly used, which does have some antibacterial benefits. Toothpaste bore little resemblance to today's minty gels. Medieval recipes called for mixtures of crushed herbs, mint, rosemary, sage, combined with honey, salt, or vinegar. Other formulations included powdered ox hooves, eggshells, or even ground mice. In some regions, people used powdered brick or pumice stone as an abrasive cleaner, which cleaned effectively but damaged enamel permanently. Breath fresheners were in high demand, especially in upper-class social settings. Cloves, cinnamon, and cardamom were chewed to mask odors. Wealthy individuals might carry pomanders, perforated metal balls containing aromatic herbs and spices to disguise bad breath. Various herbal mixtures were formulated into breath balls that could be sucked on during social occasions. Interdental cleaning, the medieval equivalent of flossing, was accomplished using horsehair, small twigs, or thin metal picks. This practice was not widespread and was more common among the upper classes who had greater concerns about appearance and social presentation. Despite these efforts, most medieval people had poor dental hygiene by modern standards. Archaeological evidence shows widespread periodontal disease, extensive decay, and tooth loss across all social classes, though nobility tended to have worse dental health due to their sugar-rich diets. The concept of regular, preventive dental care simply didn't exist. Most people addressed dental issues only when pain became unbearable. Number 3. Diet and dental decay. Did you know bread could destroy your teeth? For medieval people, their daily diet was often the main culprit behind their dental misery. What they ate and how it was prepared played a crucial role in their oral health, with stark differences between social classes. Bread was the dietary staple across medieval Europe, but it wasn't the soft, white bread we know today. Medieval bread, particularly for common people, was coarse, heavy, and contained significant grit from stone-ground flour. Millstones shed tiny stone particles into flour, which acted like sandpaper on teeth over years of consumption. Archaeological examinations of medieval skeletons consistently show severely abraded molars from this gritty diet, teeth literally ground down to the gums in older individuals. For peasants and common folk, the diet was largely vegetarian by necessity, consisting of porridges, peas, beans, and seasonal vegetables. This diet, while lacking in certain nutrients, was actually beneficial for dental health compared to that of the wealthy. The relative absence of sugar meant lower rates of dental caries among the poor, despite their minimal dental hygiene. The nobility, however, suffered from their privilege. Rich, sugary foods became status symbols during the late medieval period as sugar imports increased. Initially, sugar was so expensive it was used sparingly as a medicine or spice. By the 15th century, wealthy households displayed elaborate sugar sculptures and confections at feasts, and sweetened wines were consumed regularly. This sugar consumption led to rampant decay among the upper classes, with archaeological evidence showing that wealthy individuals often had more cavities than peasants. Honey was the primary sweetener for most people, used in beverages and cooking when affordable. While less damaging than refined sugar, it still contributed to dental decay, especially when used in sticky confections that adhered to teeth for hours. Fruit consumption varied seasonally and regionally. Apples, pears, and berries were consumed fresh in season and preserved when possible. The natural sugars in fruits contributed to decay, but their fibrous nature provided some cleaning action during chewing. Some fruits, particularly green apples, were acidic enough to damage enamel with frequent consumption. Dairy products were important dietary components with mixed dental effects. Cheese consumption actually helped protect teeth by neutralizing acids and providing calcium. Milk was less commonly consumed by adults than today, with most milk being processed into cheese or butter. Meat consumption varied dramatically by social class. Peasants might eat meat only a few times yearly, while nobility consumed it daily. Tough meats required significant chewing, which stimulated saliva production and helped clean teeth naturally. However, meat could also become trapped between teeth, leading to decay if not removed. Food preparation methods affected dental health significantly. The lack of refrigeration meant preservation techniques like smoking, drying, pickling, and salting were common. These methods often softened foods, requiring less chewing and providing less natural cleaning action. Salt preservation, while damaging to overall health, may have had some protective effect against certain oral bacteria. Drinks had significant dental impact. Water was often contaminated, so many people drank ale or beer daily, even children. These fermented beverages were typically low in alcohol but contained carbohydrates that oral bacteria could convert to acids. Wine was consumed by those who could afford it, with its acids contributing to enamel erosion. The wealthy might enjoy Hippocras wines sweetened with honey and spices, which combined erosive acids with decay-causing sugars. Perhaps surprisingly, the medieval diet included fewer between-meal snacks than our modern grazing habits. People generally ate 1 or 2 main meals daily, limiting the frequency of acid attacks on teeth. This eating pattern partially offset other factors promoting decay, though it wasn't enough to prevent widespread dental problems. Number 2, tooth loss and societal impact. Ever wondered what happened if you lost all your teeth in medieval times? No dentures, no implants, just gums. Tooth loss was so common in medieval society that it shaped cultural perceptions, social interactions, and even affected survival chances. By age 40, most medieval people had lost at least some teeth, with many older individuals completely edentulous, toothless. Archaeological evidence from medieval cemeteries shows that tooth loss increased dramatically with age, but wasn't limited to the elderly. Even young adults commonly showed evidence of missing teeth. The acceptance of tooth loss as a normal part of aging meant little effort was made to prevent it. For the vast majority, tooth loss meant permanent loss. There was no replacement option. This significantly impacted their ability to eat, particularly tough foods like meats and hard breads that formed dietary staples. People adapted by overcooking foods to soften them, focusing on porridges and stews, or simply mashing food against the roof of the mouth with their tongue. Some elderly individuals likely died prematurely due to malnutrition resulting from tooth loss. The wealthy had limited prosthetic options. Artificial teeth might be carved from animal bone, human teeth extracted from corpses or purchased from the poor, or ivory. These were typically bound to remaining natural teeth with gold or silver wire, a painful and unstable arrangement. These crude dentures were worn more for appearance than function, often being removed for eating. Queen Elizabeth I famously stuffed rags in her cheeks to compensate for tooth loss and maintain a youthful appearance. Tooth loss affected speech, with missing front teeth particularly problematic for clear communication. This could impact a person's livelihood if their role required public speaking or negotiation. Some historical records mention individuals fashioning temporary tooth replacements from wax or other materials specifically for public speaking engagements. Socially visible tooth loss carried stigma, particularly for women. While missing teeth were common, having a complete smile was associated with youth and vitality. Portraits from the period rarely show open-mouthed smiles, partly due to artistic convention, but also because many subjects had missing teeth. When smiles were depicted, they were typically closed-lipped. Surprisingly, some tooth loss was intentionally inflicted. In certain regions, deliberately removing front teeth was practiced as a cultural or religious ritual, or to indicate marital status or tribal affiliation. Some cultures filed teeth into points or other shapes as marks of beauty or social standing. For soldiers and knights, tooth loss could determine battlefield survivability. Military rations often consisted of hard biscuits and tough dried meats. Without teeth to properly chew these foods, a soldier's nutrition and strength would suffer. Some military leaders considered dental health when selecting fighters, recognizing this practical concern. By the late medieval period, the connection between aging and tooth loss had become so ingrained that artificially blackened teeth became fashionable in some regions, particularly among women in parts of Asia and among some European nobility. This practice, called ohaguro in Japan, used iron filings and vinegar to create a black coating. While seemingly counterintuitive, blackened teeth were considered more attractive than the yellowed or missing teeth that would naturally occur with age. For the medieval mind, tooth loss represented an inevitable aspect of the human condition, a visible reminder of mortality and the body's decline. It featured in artwork, literature, and memento mori, reminders of death, alongside other symbols of aging. Missing teeth in medieval depictions of the elderly were as characteristic as wrinkles or gray hair, an expected feature rather than a medical condition to be addressed. Number 1. Dental plague and pestilence. What happens when an infected tooth kills you? In medieval times, this wasn't just possible, it was common. Dental infections ranked among the leading causes of death, a fact often overlooked in discussions of medieval mortality. Without antibiotics, even minor dental infections could become life-threatening. A simple cavity, if left untreated, would progress to pulp infection, abscess formation, and potentially fatal sepsis. Archaeological evidence frequently shows skull specimens with severe bone loss around tooth sockets, evidence of advanced infections that likely contributed to many deaths. These infections left distinctive marks, drainage channels through the jawbone where pus had created pathways out of the body. Dental abscesses could spread infection directly to the brain due to the proximity of tooth roots to cranial structures. The roots of upper molars lie very close to the maxillary sinus, and beyond that, the brain. Bacteria from infected teeth could travel these short distances, causing brain abscesses with mortality rates approaching 100% in the pre-antibiotic era. Some medieval medical texts described patients dying within days of severe toothaches, likely from these spreading cranial infections. Ludwig's angina, a severe infection of the floor of the mouth usually originating from lower molar infections, was particularly feared. This condition causes rapid swelling that can close the airway, resulting in suffocation. Without emergency interventions like tracheotomy, cutting a breathing hole in the windpipe, death could occur within hours. Medieval accounts describe people choking on their own swelling following toothaches. Dental infections didn't just kill directly, they created systemic vulnerability. Chronic oral infections depleted the body's immune resources, making individuals more susceptible to other diseases. Those with ongoing dental abscesses faced higher mortality rates from plague, tuberculosis, and other common medieval illnesses. Modern research confirms that oral bacteria can enter the bloodstream, bacteremia, potentially infecting the heart valves, endocarditis, or other organs, conditions that would have been universally fatal in medieval times. For pregnant women, dental infections posed double jeopardy. The hormonal changes of pregnancy tend to worsen gum disease, while the body's altered immune response makes infection spread more likely. Records from medieval midwives occasionally mention women dying from tooth fever during pregnancy or shortly after childbirth, likely representing cases where dental infections contributed to maternal mortality. Children were particularly vulnerable to complications from dental disease. Baby teeth, deciduous teeth, have thinner enamel and develop decay more rapidly than adult teeth. With decay progressing quickly to the pulp, children could develop life-threatening infections from seemingly minor cavities. Medieval child graves frequently show evidence of dental abscesses that likely contributed to death. Evidence suggests dental problems contributed to battlefield mortality. Infected teeth weakened soldiers before combat through pain, fever, and nutritional compromise. Historical records mention soldiers unable to eat or sleep due to dental pain, rendering them ineffective in battle. Some military defeats have been partially attributed to the poor dental health of armies, with chroniclers noting how toothaches prevented warriors from fighting effectively. For medieval physicians, the connection between dental disease and overall health was recognized but misunderstood. The prevailing humoral theory held that bodily illnesses resulted from imbalances in four bodily fluids. Dental disease was sometimes correctly identified as the source of systemic illness, but the prescribed treatments like bloodletting to restore balance often weakened patients further. The smell of severe dental disease, the distinctive fetid odor of anaerobic bacterial infection, was so common that it barely warranted mention in medieval writings. This pervasive oral malodor would have been a normal part of social interaction, particularly among the elderly. Only exceptionally severe cases were noted in medical texts, usually associated with imminent death. Perhaps most poignant were the desperation measures people took when facing dental infections. Contemporary accounts describe individuals extracting their own teeth using knives or other improvised tools, risking severe bleeding or broken jaws. Others committed suicide to escape the unbearable pain of dental abscesses, a testament to the suffering caused by these infections and the inadequacy of available treatments. Do you really think your dental problems are bad now? How lucky are we to live in an age where a toothache isn't a potential death sentence?